All right, so this is going to be an interactive demo of the process to generate a topographic map using the data that we collected in our lab in geomatics. A couple of things before we begin. So for one, I am going to probably be pausing the video, or you'll see a few moments where I paused it and then restarted it. Largely because there are a couple of steps that are a tad repetitive, and once you get the hang of it, I want to basically reserve the video for only the components that need to be instruction worthy. And there are a couple of things that I am going to purposefully leave out because I do want you to kind of figure it out on your own. But mainly what I'm trying to get through with this is just making sure that any of the software barriers and whatnot get resolved as you begin the process of generating your map. So we're going to begin, and the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to import the data into Civil 3D. That's our ultimate goal. But before we do that, we need to put the data in a format that is friendly. Oh, one other thing before we begin, I am providing a set of instructions that go through through all of this. Sometime there might be some instances in the video where I do it a little bit differently. The thing about AutoCAD and I guess Excel is that there's usually more than one way of doing things, and so I'm just going to maybe on purpose show you a couple of different ways to do this so that either way will give you the answer that you want. So with that, let's get started. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to get our data from the total station into a format that's going to be friendly for AutoCAD. So what I have here on the desktop is I have two comma separated value files, and this is just dumped raw from the total station. And so I've actually named them day 1 and day 2. Yours are going to be named differently based on your group numbers and whatnot, but this will just give you kind of an idea of what we're going about. So let me open up day 1. Okay, so if we open up day 1, what we see is we see this string of data, and we've got a number of points here. Okay, and it's all in different order, and your points are going to be in different order than mine are. These are coded from a lab, a few years ago, so the order in which the points were done by this group were done differently. What we're going to do is we're going to get this into data that is usable for AutoCAD. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to run what's called a text to column wizard. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this column, okay, and I'm going to go to data, text to columns. Now, in the handout, it's doing this a little differently. What you're doing is you're starting with a blank Excel file and then importing the data. I'm just manipulating the data file automatically, but either one will work. This is one of those things where I mentioned where there's multiple different ways of going about it. Now, when you look at the data file, one of the things to note is that each data point is separated by a semicolon. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so what AutoCAD's going to do is it's going to, or AutoCAD, Excel, what Excel's going to do is it's going to take these data points and it's going to spit them out into individual columns, which is what I need. Okay, so I'm going to hit delimited, and I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to check the semicolon. And you'll notice here on the wizard, if you go here, like once you check semicolon, Excel kind of recognizes, okay, that's where these data points need to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit finish, and bam, there we go. So now it's taken the data and it's spit it out into individual columns. So a couple things I'm gonna do just right off the bat. So the first thing, these 8 attribute columns are not going to be needed. So I'm going to delete those. So I'm just going to highlight the columns up top, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit delete. So we'll get rid of those. And then we notice here we can see the control points are sort of getting repeated. So I can see that I'm not going to need these. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. So right click, hit delete. Oh, wrong one. Right click, hit delete. Let's see, and I've got my turning point code. We see this show up twice. This is probably fine as is. So let me scroll down a little bit, see if there's any other issues and whatnot I need to resolve. I don't really see anything here that's too much of an issue, so we're good to go. The only other thing that we need to do, and this might be a little strange, is we actually need to delete the heading. Okay, the header row lists the point ID, the north, easting, height, and code. I'm actually going to delete these because we're not going to need these, so we're going to hit delete. And the only other thing past that I'm going to need to do is I need to deal with these codes over here on the very left. Now, the way that AutoCAD is going to work, what we need to do is we need to insert these points with numeric point IDs. So everything down here from point 1 all the way down here, these are fine. There's nothing really wrong with these. But these first ones are a little bit of an issue, okay? So what I need to do is I need to number them in some fashion. So a common thing to do is to maybe start out with code 1000, maybe 1001, 1000, 1002, etc. We've got to get rid of these control point codes. But maybe as a result, maybe what we'll do is we'll go back here. We'll say this is CP10. This is CP11. This is CP12. You know, something like that. CP13. And maybe we'll call this turning point 1, what have you. And I'm being fast and loose with my coding here, but you in the preparation of your drawing should be much more specific with how you code this, because this should match the notes that you collected in the field. Okay. So when it's all said and done, you should have a row dedicated to every point with no header. And what you should have is northing, easting, the elevation, and then the description. So actually, if you wanted to describe the file in letters, it would be PNEZD. The point number, the northing, easting, the elevation, and the description. Okay, and I typed that out, that PNEZD, because you're going to see that code here in a little bit in AutoCAD. Okay, but this is all processed and ready to go. So maybe what I'll do is I'll hit File, Save As, and for now, what I'm going to do is I will save this to the desktop right here, and I'm going to hit Day 1 Processed. And when you save this, I went over this a little quickly, but what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Save As, and make sure you save this as not an Excel file, but a CSV file, a comma-separated value file. Okay, so because that's what we're going to need to import into AutoCAD. Okay, so we've got, so just to be clear, let me close this. So what we've done is we went from our Day 1 data, which was, here, I'll put it side by side. So let's put it side by side just to make sure we're on the same page. So we went from Day 1 data on the left, which just came raw from the total station, and we've turned it into processed data on the right. And this is, again, this is what AutoCAD is going to need from an import standpoint. Now, what you're also going to need to do is you're going to need to do the same thing for the second day's data, or if you did multiple setups, however many times you need to do that. And you're going to need to append that at the very end so that when it's all said and done, all of your points are all listed in one single file. Okay, so I go through that in the handout, but when it's all said and done, that's what you need to do. Now let me close all of this, and I'll just open up my process. This is my file that I'm going to be using for my analysis. So when it's all said and done, these are the points that I'm going to be using for my drawing. Now, one of the things you'll note is that, for example, the sidewalks, the utility poles, what have you, my codes might be a little different than yours, and my data might be indicated a little bit differently than yours. But for the most part, this should follow what you're doing. Now, it's actually going to make the video a little bit interesting because I actually don't have field notes for this. I'm just going off of the raw data itself, so that might actually make for an interesting drawing. But again, I'm not going to completely finish the drawing. I'm just going to go through what I think is enough for you to be able to perform the generation of the drawing on your own. So with that, the data is processed and whatnot. So let me close this. If you look here on the desktop, I have a folder here called TopoLab, and I'm going to be doing all of my work inside this file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this processed file, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to rename it as topo.csv, and I'm going to put that here in this this TopoLab file. And everything that I do from a lab standpoint is going to be done inside this folder. So with that, let's go ahead and open up Civil 3D. So now that we've got our process data, I'm going to open Civil 3D. And so as this opens, we've got a couple things that we need to do at the very beginning. But essentially what we're going to be doing is, I would say in 4 steps, like really, there's this really big handout, but it's really generated in really 4 big steps. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be importing our surveying data. We're going to be assigning our codes to the survey data. We're going to be drawing, and then we're going to be preparing our plat for plot. And that's basically what we're doing in one big nutshell. There's a lot of instructions here and a lot of steps, but really that's kind of the gist of what we're after. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file. Okay, and so here I've got Civil 3D open. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save the file. So we're going to go File, Save As drawing, and let's put this on the desktop. Let's do Topo Lab, and let's call this TopoCAD. So TopoCAD. Before we do any work with the survey, and I want to talk a little bit about Civil 3D just to make sure we're all on the same page, but before we do anything with the survey, I want to go in and set the units for the drawing. And so just so you're aware, as I'm going through this, I got myself a little cheat sheet right here. So if you see me referring to that, that's what I got going on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the links for the units and the angles and whatnot for the drawing, so that when we import the data and we start annotating and whatnot, that it's all kind of aligned with what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the length to 2 decimal places. I'm going to set the angles to degrees, minutes, seconds, and I'm going to have the precision be reported to the nearest second. My insertion scale, the units that I'm inserting are going to be with respect to feet. So, for example, the X, Y, and Z data from the points are going to be in feet. For direction, what I'm going to do is set my base angle as north. So all my azimuths are going to be from north. And I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm just going to go ahead and save it. So I just want to make sure the units and whatnot are set up. Okay. Now, the first thing I'll mention is before we get in, so this is just AutoCAD Civil 3D, and what we have here is essentially AutoCAD with additional features and additional commands specific for civil engineering projects. A lot of what we're going to do is inside this tool space over here on the left. If for some reason you accidentally close it, you can just go literally right here on top of the Home tab and click the tool space button and it'll pop up. So just to make sure that, in case you close it, you're able to find it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to import the data that we just so nicely formatted. And so we're going to do that with our wizard here on the in our ribbon toolbar up top. So what we're trying to do is insert some data. So we're going to import some survey data. So we got a nice little wizard that we can follow through that will format our data accordingly. But we're kind of starting from scratch, so we need to create some databases. So we're going to create a new survey database. Our new survey database, we're going to just call it Topo Lab. So this is going to contain all the data for our survey that we're about to enter. Before we do that, I want to mess with the settings just a little bit. So if we open up settings, what we're going to do is just format it a little bit to make sure that it's what we want. And really all I want to do is just make sure that the direction of our angles of our units and whatnot are north azimuths. That's really the only thing I wanted to do. So we'll hit OK there. Okay, so we're going to hit next. Now we need to specify our data source. And our data source is going to be a point file. And we need to find that point file. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this little plus right here. We're going to go to the file that we're working from. And we're going to change this down to comma separated values and find our topo CSV. Okay. Now, the biggest thing that you want to do is not just forge ahead. You want to make sure that you're choosing the right data format for the import process. And if you remember, if you go down here, we've got a series of format options. It's near the bottom. We're going to go with this one right here, PNEZD. So point number, northing, easting, elevation, and description. Okay, that's the format that we want to go off of. Okay, if you don't select the right one, or for example, if you select PENZD, then your orientations are going to be switched. It's going to look like your drawing's rotated by about 90 degrees. So this is what we're after here, PNEZD, because that's the format of our data. So we're going to hit import. We're not going to worry about the network. Don't worry about that. For the import options, what we are going to need to do is make sure that we process the line work during import, and we do want to make sure that, where is it? Insert survey points. We're going to make sure that this item is checked yes. So this is just making sure that it is actually going to draw the points and insert the points into the file. We hit finish. Boom. Okay. Now, right now, it doesn't, like you saw kind of something flash on the screen, but it's not there. That's because of where we're at on the zoom. So I'm going to go to the command window, and I'm going to hit Z for zoom. And then, so this is the zoom file, so Z and press enter, and then I'm going to hit E for extents. And boom, there's my data. Okay. This is the data for the lab. Okay. Now, first thing I'll mention is it's kind of a hot mess, and it's because the annotation scale is kind of big. So what's happening is AutoCAD's just using the basic scale for how big to draw the text and draw the symbols, and because things are so close together, it's kind of hard to see. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of soften that a little bit, just to make sure things are kind of nice. So the way that we'll do that is if you look here at the bottom, see where it says 1 inch equals 40 feet? That's the annotation scale. And so I'm going to make that smaller. Let's go one more. Let's do 1 inch is 20 feet. Okay. So now that makes it a little bit easier to kind of navigate with what's going on. A couple other things I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to, if you look here on the very, very bottom, let me see. Oh, sorry. Make that a little bigger like that. I want to make sure I can see everything. So on the very, very bottom right, there's these three lines right here, customization. I'm going to click coordinates. Oh, you can't see that on the camera here. Let me move my camera down here. Okay, so what I'm going to click is I'm going to click these three down here. I'm going to click these three right here, and I'm going to click coordinates. And so what happens is if you look here, there's this new little toolbar here down below. And what that's doing is as I move the cursor, you can see the coordinates actually changing. And so that'll help as you navigate throughout the model. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to start processing this a little bit. And in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to start coding some of these points. Okay, and so what I mean by that is if you look at the if you look at the data that you see here, really you should, for the most part, depending upon how you coded things, you really only see two things. You see the you should see the trees and maybe just some X's. So what happened was AutoCAD saw the word tree and it said, okay, that's a tree. We're going to put a tree symbol there. But it didn't really know what to do with anything else. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see about changing those a little bit so that it's a little easier to navigate with what's going on. Now, before we do that, I want to see if we can code some of our points maybe a little bit better. So I'll walk you through one thing that'll maybe help you out a little bit. If you look right here, so let me look here. So this is Buskirk Field. I want to go down and I want to look at these points right here, 164, 65, 66, 67, 8, 9, 70, 71. These 8 points that are in a group. These are the coints courts. Okay. Now, right now they're being coded as MISC. Okay. So they're coded wrong. So when we generate our plots, these points are going to be coded. These aren't going to be coded correctly. So I want to go in and edit those. Okay. So let me show you how to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into survey. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into, let's see, survey points. Let me close this down here. Let's see. So, oh, sorry. I went to the wrong one. I went right here. That's where I want to go. I want to go into the topo.csv. So right click here to points, and we're going to go to edit points. Okay. Now, so what I did is I went into the import events. I went to my comma separated value, and I went to edit survey points. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up this little spreadsheet that looks like this, and you can go in and actually start editing your codes and whatnot. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. Let's do that. Okay. Okay, I think that'll be fine. Okay, so because I kind of want to be able to still see this. Okay, So we have 164, 65, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. These right here. I want to find these points. I'm going to go down here. And what I'm going to do is I've got these points here. These are actually my very last points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the code. I'm actually going to do that right here in the file by just highlighting this and going to Qt. Now, what I'm doing is I'm using my mouse. I'm just double-clicking the miscellaneous and typing in Qt. So as I type it in, you should see that the rows are getting bolder because what AutoCAD is recognizing is, hey, you're changing these, okay? So I just want to make sure that you see that you can do that in here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to save these changes. Then we're going to save these changes, and then we're going to close this. And then now what happens, you can see now they're being marked as QT. So we just saved our changes, closed, and now you can see they're QT. What we're going to do is later on, we're going to define a symbol for quotes, and then we're going to have AutoCAD actually plot that symbol right here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go in, and so part one, like I said, part one was really just importing the data into CAD, and so we've got the data imported. Part two is going to be formatting how AutoCAD is plotting these points. Like I said, it seems to be doing a good job with the trees, but we kind of need to figure out or fix how everything else is doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and what I mean by that is we need to define codes for everything else. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the settings drawing, or the settings component. We're going to go into point right here. Description key sets, and so what we're going to do with description key sets, we're going to right click on Civil 3D and edit our keys. Okay, so I'm going to make this part, I'm going to make a little bit bigger, and I'm going to sort of expand a few of these rows right here. So okay, that's probably enough to kind of see what's going on. Okay. So what we've got here is we've got AutoCAD has basically defined a standard series of formatting steps for it to interpret the data file and then generate a feature in the drawing. So for example, we see TR and it says tree, and then it's figuring out how to do that. Now, the TR star means basically anything that has a TR or after that, it's formatting as a tree. And in my data file, the only thing that we coded with TRs was trees. That's why they're all sort of plotting as trees. But there's no real instructions for it to do anything else, okay? So what we're going to do is define some instructions for some of the other points, okay? So let me sort of show you how this works. So let's go into this first row right here. And we're going to edit some things in this first row. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this CP star. Okay. So CP star is going to be the control point format. Okay. I'm basically editing how I want Civil 3D to plot the control points, the 4 nails. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the point style. I'm going to change the point style to a benchmark. And just so you're aware, after I type that, I hit tab to bring these windows up. So we're going to hit the style as benchmark. And what do I want for this? For the point label style, let's just do the description only. So what this is saying is point number, elevation, and description. Right now, I just want the description, and you'll see what happens with this here in a second. And then I am going to mess with this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Edit Current Selection. Let's see. Let's change a couple things. So what we're going to do is, let's see. We're going to go into general, let's see, layout. Let's look at layout. Okay, so what I want to do is let's see, under contents, oh, I know what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to do is change this to raw description. So what I did is I clicked the let me go through and do that again. So what I did is I'm going into contents, and I'm going in, and it might be a little difficult to see here on the screen, but what it says is raw. What it says here, what it did say was full description. And now I want to change that to raw description. And the reason I'm doing that is because in the point file, the raw description is the code for the name. So I'm changing that to raw description so that when it replots the points, you'll see what it looks like. So we're going to hit OK. We're going to hit OK here. OK. So I'm going to make the format blank. And let's see, is that the layer that I want? Yeah, we'll do that as the layer that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and go away from this. So I'm going to let's hit save here, and then before we exit this, so what we're going to do is okay. So I'm only going to do this one for now because I kind of want you to see accurately what happens here. So what we're going to do is we're now going to go into the Prospector tab, and we're going to go into the Prospector tab, and we're going to go to Point Groups, Topo, and then we're going to apply description keys. Okay, boom. All right, so let me zoom in a little bit. And so I don't know if you can see that, but you can see probably 4 data points, hopefully 4 data points, and they suddenly changed. And what changed? The control points. Here's control point 13, control point 12, control point 11, control point 10. You can kind of see it right there. So what I did is I essentially modified the description or the means for control points, and then I had it apply that, and suddenly it changed the description for these control points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to go through and do the rest of them. So just to make sure that we're on the same page, we're going to go to edit keys. And so how I did this CP one, I'm going to do the rest of them. And just so you're aware, there are a few of them. So I am going to pause the video because I don't want to put you through that. But when it's all said and done, you'll see what it is. And I'll sort of highlight some key things that I think are worth mentioning. So, all right, so we're back. A couple things. So before I get into the points, I think I had a little bit of an error because I was looking at the control points, and I meant to plot it as a benchmark, but I think I plotted it as a station, so I had to fix that. So what I've done is I've got the codes that I've created, and I'm organizing it alphabetically. So a couple things, you'll see that I've got the styles for each one indicated. I'll show you a couple highlights. I actually created one for the quote. So if I double click this and I'll say edit current selection just to kind of show you. So the point that I created is a square point that's rotated 45 degrees because based on the way the map is showing, that's about how the coins plots will look. And I've used the symbol to be 3 feet in absolute units, so it will plot that with an actual 3-foot symbol. So that's why we took the measurement in the symbol in the center there. So let me hit cancel. A couple of other things. So the topo lines have been changed to a layer called def points because that actually doesn't plot, which we don't really care about plotting the topo points, but we need the data from those points to generate the contour lines. So we just wanted to make sure that was all said all good. So I have here an image of all the layers. Again, I just sat here for a few minutes and did all of this. There's pretty detailed descriptions on what each of these codes need to be based on how you coded your data. So we're going to save our file. Let's just make sure it's saved. We're going to close this. Then we're going to go back into that Prospector tab, and we're going to right-click our topo and hit Apply Description Keys, and we should see some changes. Boom, we see a lot of changes. Okay, so what do we see? Okay, so, I see something we need to fix. So, for example, point 164, that was supposed to be a coins. It's not. So let's go back to our survey points edits. Let's go to point 164. Let's see, what did we miss? Oh, I missed one. That's supposed to be a coin. So we're going to change that to QT. Down. We're going to... let's see, hit the save button, close, and then we're going to go to our Prospector, right click, apply description keys. There we go. That fixed it. Okay, wanted to make sure we got all our points coded. Okay, so we see a lot going on here. we see some interesting stuff. So we've got this turning point here, which we probably want to change what's going on with there, which we could. I'm not going to worry about it for the purposes of the drawing, but we could come up with a new style. We could code that, but essentially that's where the total station was set up right here for this lab. We've got our 4 nails. We've got the trees. We can see the sidewalk points. So here we can see some sidewalk points here. There's a sidewalk point there, and from there we can begin the process of starting to process our line work. Now I've gone through in the handout on the line work. I'm going to go through that a couple of different ways. So what I mean by that is here in the handout I've gone through to where it will process the line work for you. And so I'm going to have you, so that's one way of doing it, where you can actually go through and have it automate it. But another way is to actually draw the lines directly. So I want to show you one way of doing the drawings that's a little bit different than this. One thing I am going to do that's consistent with your instructions is I'm going to make this a little easier to see. So I'm going to turn off a couple layers. So right now what we're trying to do is draw the sidewalks. Okay, sorry, I should have mentioned that clear. So right now what we're going to do is draw the sidewalks. So a couple things I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off a few layers. So let's turn off the, so again, AutoCAD Civil 3D generates like every layer you could think of. So let's turn off the depth points. Let's turn off the trees. And let's turn off the poles. Okay, so I'll close this. And so now we've got something that's a little easier to see. And if we scroll, for example, down here, we can start to see the sidewalks. We can see where everything's coded. And we can begin the process of starting to draw all this out. Now, I want to make sure we're drawing on the correct layer. So I'm indicating that I want all the sidewalks drawn on the road layer. So we're going to go to see road right here. So what I'm doing, so if you, just to make sure we're clear, if you go very top, what I'm doing is by default, you're on the 0 layer. So anything that you draw, so if I go to the line command here, create line, anything that you draw is being drawn with the Z layer. Okay, the 0 layer. What I want to do is draw things on the road layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do to start out is I'm going to go to the Home tab, and just to make things easier. So again, this is way different than your handout, but I'm just trying to do this kind of simply for the purposes of demonstration. If you go into the line command, you're going to see a lot of options for drawing lines, and this is way more than in the standard AutoCAD, but what I'm going to do is just draw lines by point numbers. And so if you look down here, I can literally just start entering in point numbers. So for example, I can go 5, enter, 6, enter, 7, enter, 8, enter. And we can see, 9, enter, 10, enter, 11, enter, 12, enter. And we can see, bam, now we've got these figured out. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just keep going. And one of the things you're starting to notice is, okay, some of these are, these sidewalk drawings might look a little strange, but this is where, your notes need to come into play. So let's just keep going. And I'm just going to use these for the sake of discussion. And I know that as I'm drawing this, that some of this doesn't really make sense because this isn't how the sidewalks were configured in Buskirk. But again, this is where your field notes come into play. So we'll say 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Okay, I think this is the end because past that, we're getting a point that doesn't make sense. Okay, so here we can see, we have the bones of what the sidewalk should look like. Some of these don't really look right. So for example, if we look at 5, 6, and 7, you know, that's not supposed to be a straight line segment. That's supposed to be a curve. So what I'll do is I'll draw an arc by 3 points. And maybe what we'll do is, let's see if we can do 0.5. No, that's not going to work for this. So an easier way of generating the curved segments beyond what's listed in the handout is to use some of the Kogo features in AutoCAD. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into, so if we look in the draw command, I'm going to look at this sort of like regression feature right here. So let me draw a line, and instead of best fit line, we're just going to do best fit arc. And since we're only going to pick 3 points, it's going to create a perfect arc. So we're going to hit best fit arc. It's going to give us some options, and we're going to use the Kogo points. So for example, let's say I know that 5, 6, and 7 is supposed to be a curved segment. So what I'll do when it says select point by numbers or groups, I'll just do numbers. And what I'll do is I'll enter 5, 6, and 7. And you can see it's already fit an arc to it. So after I've done that, I'm going to hit enter. And then up here, I'm going to hit the save button. And then you can see it's actually created the arc. And so we can do that, for example, right here. So here was just a series of straight line segments that I put in just temporarily. So I'm going to delete this, delete this. Let's say I got an arc here. So we're going to go to best fit arc. We're going to do from Kogo points, so coordinate geometry points, numbers. Or, you know, you can pick from the screen. You know, you can do it like that. Then hit enter and then save. And then you can see the arc is created. So if you have multiple points, AutoCAD will figure out the best fit arc. And so we can repeat that. So for example, we can do here. I'll delete this. And then we're going to go to, again, create best fit arc from Kogo points, numbers, 12, 13, 14, enter again, save, and boom. And so I'm not going to do all of them. I think that there's enough here that I think you could compute the rest. And I know that some of these line works are probably not correct, but again, this goes from the field notes. The field notes that you take indicating what corresponds to what is incredibly important. So for our purposes, I'm actually just going to go with this. Again, I know it's not accurate because I know the sidewalk right here doesn't look like this in Buskirk Field, but for the purposes of this demo, I think it's fine. So let's ZE. And now what we need to do is process our topographic data. One thing I recognized, I forgot before we do the topo, is we need to indicate our benches. So if we look here, for example, this is control point 10. So if I look at the control points 10, 11, 12, and 13, we have a bench right here. So this 158 is a bench. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate that with a rectangle that's about 2 foot by 5 foot. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the offset command. So we're going to offset, we'll say 2 feet. So we'll offset like from here to here and from here to here. Let's just do that. I think that's probably fine here. Actually, let's do this. So since these benches are for the most part parallel with the sidewalk right here, I'm going to copy this sort of, I don't know, about right here. And what I'll do is I'll offset a foot apiece. So we'll offset one up and one down. And again, you can attach this directly to the point if you would like. I'm just trying to make sure that you're clear on how to hatch, because for some of you, it's probably been a while since you've done that. And so we'll draw a line. Let's draw a line from here to here. And then I'm going to offset 2.5 feet. Thing about AutoCAD is there's no one right way to do things. And then what I will do is I will use the chamfer command. So we're going to chamfer from here to here. Oh, sorry. Chamfer from here. Oh, they're not planar. Ah, I see, because of the elevation. So I'll just extend that like that. I see what it's trying to do. Okay, and so we will trim this. Sorry, meant to trim that and that. There we go. We'll delete that center one right there. Then what we'll do is we will create a hatch, and we will just hatch inside there. Oh, I see what's going on. It doesn't like what I did there. It doesn't like that didn't connect. Let's try that again. So let's connect those. This is AutoCAD real time. Let's delete this, delete that, delete that. Okay, so tell you what we'll do. Let's just draw a rectangle. I was trying to map the orientation exactly when it's pretty much exact. So we'll just go 5. Let's draw a rectangle. Dimensions 5, 2. Just put that right there. Let's move this. Let's hatch it right here. So we're going to hatch inside. Instead of a solid, let's do a shaded. So I went to ANSI 31, so we'll do that. And then we'll just move this. Move that right there. For the purposes of indicating where our bench is, that's probably good enough. Okay, so I just wanted to cover that really quickly just to make sure that you were clear on how to do a hatch. So just to be clear, and I'll repeat that again just to make sure we're all doing that. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing a rectangle. So what I'll do is I'll pick a point, and then I'll type the letter D for dimensions, and I'll do 5 feet by 2 feet. We'll just put that right there. I will create a hatch. You can literally just type hatch, and we'll pick that region, hit OK, and then we'll just move it where it needs to go. So that's how you create your symbol for a bench, according to the standard we're going to use. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to generate our contour lines. And so this is hopefully where we see if we've collected enough data to get a good contour plot for our survey. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Survey tab. Again, like I said, a lot of the magic happens in this toolbar, this tool pane over here on the very left. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Survey Queries. Let's see. In the Survey tab, where is it? Oh, there it is. I was like, oh, I couldn't see it, but it's what happens when you're doing this live. Okay, so we're going to have a new one. And you should get this little dialog box that pops up. Let me put this over here in the middle of the screen so we can kind of see what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the name to Contour Points. Caps lock. Now, what we're doing here is we're basically, so creating the contours is sort of like somewhat of like a two-step feature or two-step process. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually ask AutoCAD to select the points from which we want to draw the topo, and then we're going to tell it to draw the topo. Okay, so so what we're going to do is we have created our contour points. We're creating that contour points. We're going to configure the settings such that, so what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and generate a list of only the points that contain a topo code and an SW code. So what we're going to do is we're going to go points by query. We're going to select a description is equal to topo. Let's do caps lock. We got to do caps lock on this. Or a description is equal to SW. Oh, I misspelled topo there. So basically what we're saying is we've got this big old database of points. Give me all the points that have either a description of topo or a description of SW. Okay? And so what it's going to do is it's going to yank all the points from our database from with these codes, and it's going to use that to generate the topographic lines. So let's save that query. And see, so now you have a survey query, you have control points. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Prospector tab. Let me close this. I don't need this anymore. So we're going to go into Prospector tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to find surfaces, and we're going to create a surface. Okay? All right. So the type surface, we're going to set the type to a 10. That's a triangulated irregular network. And we're going to set the style to, what's our style? What do we want to do? Let's do styles. Let's do contours 1 and 5. So what it's going to do is it's going to draw the contours every 5 feet a little differently than the contours every 1 feet. So the ones at every 5 feet are going to pop a bit. And design is just to make sure that they're sort of in the forefront. Okay, so we're going to, let's see. Okay, let's see. So we created this surface, and so what we're going to do is expand the definition. Let's see, point survey queries. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the contour points query to this. So I don't think we need a description. We'll just hit OK. Boom! There we go. So what it did is we created a process by which to generate the topo. We then added the points that we had queried to that surface generation, and by golly gosh gee, here we go. We've got ourselves a topo. Okay, so the nice thing about this is, like I said, it automatically generated it for us. But the downside is there's not really anything on the topo lines themselves. We kind of need to actually indicate the elevations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, let's see, the Annotate tab. We actually need to put labels on this. Okay, so instead of using the dimension features, which you're probably familiar with in AutoCAD regular, we're going to add labels. And we're going to add labels, let's see, we're going to add labels to the, or maybe I'll just click the big button here. We're going to add labels to a surface, and so what we're adding the label to is, we're doing the contour. That's what we're trying to do. We'll just hit add, and so now what we're doing is we're basically saying, okay, let's just do one, and you'll kind of see. Let's just put one right there. Boom. And now we can see that there's a label there of 103. So maybe we'll put one right there. Boom, 102. Ooh, that one's kind of ugly, but we'll go with it. So 104. 105. If you want, what you can do is if you go into the object snap, you can add, so here at the bottom, if you go into the object snap, you can add this term nearest. So if you add nearest, what that will do is it will actually pick along the line a little better. So if you want a little bit more flexibility on where it goes, maybe we'll put it right there, or right there, or right there, right there, maybe right there. You know, it'll give you a little bit more resolution. And again, notice how the ones at every 5 feet, the lines are a little bit brighter. The labels are a little bit different. Again, that's sort of just making sure it's kind of clear for you as the user. Let's see. So do we have any that we're missing? I think we got all of them. Okay, good. So let me escape here. So it looks like we got all of them, so that's good. So now we've got our contours labeled. Again, I'm not really being scientific with this. I'm not being hyper specific with trying to make it nice. I'm just making sure that you're comfortable with how to do this. The beauty of YouTube is that you can always pause and redo it. But again, all I'm doing is, now that I've created it, I'm just placing a label on every contour so that we can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so the very last step that we need to do is to actually turn this into a drawing. Your handout is very loose on this because I'm expecting that you all should have a little bit of experience with this. Let me close this and save it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to utilize paper space in order to generate this drawing. That's how I like to do it. So first off, let me zoom, extents, and I'm actually going to zoom out just a little bit just to kind of see what's going on. I'm going to use paper space. So let me go. I'm actually going to move my camera. Let's move it. I don't know, right there. That's probably fine. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use paper space to generate my drawing. Now, what I like to do is I'm going to go down here at the very bottom. So there are a series of layouts already defined for us, but I'm not going to use any of those. I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to go to this layout, and I'm going to rename it. Let's call it final drawing. Okay. And a couple things I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to delete this viewport. So right now the drawing's pretty blank. So if you've never used Paperspace, what Paperspace is a means by which you can just format the sheet of paper. So it's a nice place to draw your title block. But Paperspace is really valuable if you have a single model space from which you have a bunch of stuff drawn on it. And from that single model space, you'd like to generate 10, 20, 30 sheets. That's where Paperspace carries its value. Now we're going to format this to an 11 by 17. So I'm going to go to File. Let's go to Print. Let's go to Page Setup. And so we're going to go in and we're going to modify the page setup so that it's printing out the way we want it. Now, the way that I like to do this is I'm going to go into modifying the final drawing. And what I like to do is I like to use full bleed. So what full bleed means is if you look here at the layout, you can see this like little dashed line here on the very edge. That dashed line is basically saying this is all that AutoCAD is going to let me use on the page, but I'd like to use the space that I'd like to use. So I'm going to go and let's see. Let's make this. So we're going to change our printer. We're going to change our printer from to DWG to PDF. So I'm actually just going to export this as a PDF when this is all said and done. And I'm going to use full bleed, and we're going to do 11 by 17. We're going to do this on an 11 by 17. So we're going to hit OK. Close. Okay, so now we have a full 11 by 17 sheet of paper that's blank. I'm going to move my camera up just a little bit so you can kind of see what's going on here. So we have an 11 by 17 paper that's completely blank. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually, before we actually do anything with the drawing, we're actually going to insert our title block and whatnot. So the cool thing about Paperspace is you're actually drawing on the sheet of paper. So for example, if I draw, let's draw a line. Let's go to layout here. First off, I'm going to go to home. I'm going to set the first thing before we start drawing into Paperspace, I'm going to set my layer to 0 because I want this to print. So we're going to draw a line. So I can say 0, 0, and it's actually drawing from the edge of the paper, or 17, 11. So I'm actually drawing on the sheet of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually draw a rectangle. So this is sort of like how I do title blocks. I'm going to draw a rectangle, 0, 0, and then we're going to go dimensions. So D for dimensions, and then 17, 11. And then we're going to put that up here. Now that put a rectangle on the very, very outside border. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset that by, let's say, I don't know, ½ an inch. So we'll do 0.5, enter, click, inside, and now here's my title block. Or that's my border around the page. So that's a very simple way of beginning your title block. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some information here on the bottom. I'm going to be very rough about it, but let's do this part live. So let's see. So I'll put it down here on the bottom. We'll do it live. So let's create a line. Let's go up. I don't know. Let's go 3. Oh. Let me change my object snap here. So I'm going to turn nearest off, and let's see. Let's do ortho mode. So ortho mode will actually only draw things up, down, left, right, which if I'm drawing a title block, that's kind of exactly what I want. So we'll do 3. Let's do, I don't know, 5 down, 3. So we've got ourselves a nice little rectangle here. Let's offset this, I don't know, 1. So we'll give ourselves a little bit of row space here. Like I said, I'm being pretty rough with this, and we'll offset this, I don't know, 2.5. Put that there. We'll use the trim command, so I'm hitting trim to trim this part here. And so now I've got some space that I can work with. And so what we'll do is we'll use multi-line text. Put some text here. Okay. Maybe what I'll do is let me edit that a little bit. Let's make that intro to geomatics. And let's, so what I like to do is I like to go to properties. So I'll type in properties and I'll change that over here on the very right from top left to middle center. And maybe what I'll do is move that down a bit. About like that. Okay. And then now what I can do is maybe, maybe we'll do another annotation right here. I'll do one more. I'm not going to waste your time on the video doing all of these, but we'll say if I was doing this professionally, I'd be way more concerned with being very, very, very neat and organized. But I'm not going to worry about that. But you can get very, very specific with how you want to do this. But that's enough for our discussion. Okay. So what we need to do in order to finish this out, we need to actually include the viewport. And then we need to put north arrow, title block, legend, all of that. Okay. Now, in order to do this, so one thing I'm going to do, so in this laundry list of layers, I'm actually going to create one more. I know that seems very interesting, but I'm going to go with all these layers. But I'm going to go into layers. I'm going to create one more. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this viewport layer. Viewport layer, and you'll see why I'm going to use this here in a bit. Okay, so now what we need to do is, this is a great little drawing, but there's nothing really here, right? So we need to actually, include the topo we just drew. So in the layout tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do new, I'm going to go to insert view. Okay, now when you go to insert view, here's the drawing, and as we can see, it's kind of a mess and whatnot. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight all of this, and so what I'm basically doing is I'm saying, okay, I want all this stuff here in the drawing. So we're going to hit enter, accept. Let's just put it right there. Okay, so what it did is it put everything there in the drawing, but the problem is I don't know what scale it's in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that again. Okay, but now I'm going to be a little bit more specific by worrying about the scale. Okay, so let me zoom out a little bit. Let's do this. So so one thing is if you're drawing it, so I like that. I can keep drawing it until I get what I like. I'm going to do that. So we'll hit enter. Now, before I click, I'm going to right click to change the scale. So let's right click and let's change the scale to something we like. 50, 40. Okay, I actually kind of like that. I'm actually going to go with that. Actually, you know what? Let's do this right here. Let's do 60. Okay, let's do that. So to be clear, I don't think that this is a good scale. I think you can do better. But the reason why I went with this is because my title block is so big. So probably what I would do is modify my title block a little bit so that I can get more space, because you want the drawing to take up as much space as possible. So let me do this. Let me just keep this simple. Let's do this. Let's just trim this. And just so that we can all kind of see what's going on, let's just move that down like that. Let's do this viewport again. Let's see if we can do better. So layout, insert view. I kind of like that. Let's do 1 to 60, 1 to 50, 1 to 40. Okay, I like that one. That one's taking up a lot more space. I want this drawing to be as big as possible. So let's put it about right there. Okay, that's good. That's taking up a lot more space. I want the drawing to be the star of the show. Okay, so we're going to go into here. Let's go here. Let's make sure that that was actually put on the viewport layer. If not, you can click the object and just right click and put it on the viewport layer. And the reason why I'm doing that, the reason why I created a separate layer is because what I can do is I can go down here into my layer manager. I can go to the viewport, which I put that at the very bottom. Now I can turn that layer off, and now it's showing everything except for that window. So now I'm seeing only what I want to see. Okay, boom. So now we're getting something done here. The only thing we have left to do is we have to insert some features necessary for our drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the north arrow and title block. But to do that, let me turn this back on. But in order to do that, because in order to draw the north arrow and do the scale, I need to actually link to this viewport. So let's go to Survey, Query. Let's go to Layout Tools. Let's start off with the north arrow. North arrow is easy. Okay, so north arrow. I like this one. So let's go with that one. So you have to actually click a viewport. The reason why you have to do that is because you may have a drawing in Civil 3D where north isn't facing up and down. North may be this way. So you want north to be attached to a viewport in question. So we click that viewport and let's put it right here. And here it is, but woo, it's tiny. It's very tiny, okay? So we need to scale this thing up. So I'm going to use the scale command. So you can find that in the home, or you can literally just type in scale. And we're going to click the north arrow, right click, and then so you click the north arrow, right click or press enter, and then where it says specify base point, I'm going to select, somewhere like in the north arrow, like right here, and then it's asking for a scale factor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a scale factor of 40 because that's the scale that I use for the viewport. And now that north arrow looks like it's the right size for the drawing. That's exactly what I want. Okay. Next I'm going to insert is a scale bar. So let's go into Layout Tools. Let's do a scale bar. Let's just do the first imperial one. Let's do this viewport. Okay. So it's got a lot of stuff here. It's got a lot of stuff going on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to feet. We're going to do a scale bar division of 40 feet and a scale ratio of 1 to 480. And the reason why it's 480 instead of 40 is because it's 1 inch, or 1 foot is 12 inches. So you got to multiply by 12. So we'll do 40 and 480. Hit OK. Let me turn this ortho off so I can place this where I want. So I went down here on the very bottom and I hit the ortho button. And so let's put this right there. I don't know. That's fine. You can use whichever one you want. Maybe what I'll do is I'll move this a little bit. Maybe I'll move it, I don't know, right here. This is where you're sort of doing this however you want. Let's put that right there. Okay. So now we're getting something done. Okay. So now let's go ahead and turn that viewport layer off. Let's go into the layer manager. Turning that viewport layer. Let's turn that viewport layer off. Okay. So now the only thing left to do is create a legend. Now you're probably thinking that I'm going to go into Layout Tools and actually tell you to insert a legend this way. I'm actually not going to do that. I think that's a little more difficult than just manually inserting a legend. And so let me show you how I do that. I'm going to go into Annotate, and I'm going to go into Multi-Line Text. So this is sort of like how I've always done a legend. I think it's a lot easier. Is let's just create some text. I don't know, right here, what have you. And it's typical whenever you're doing a drawing, a survey drawing, that everything's in all caps. It's very rare that you don't put things in all caps. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's make that a little bigger. You know, something like that. Okay. Legend tree, control point, quotes, etc. Now, why are trees and whatnot not showing up? Because we turned them off. So let's go back to our layer manager. Let's turn the trees back on. So let's turn our poles on, trees on. Let's go back to the model space. There we go. There we go. So sometimes you have to go to model space and back, and you can see your trees are now showing up. I'm going to leave the def points layer off. I don't want all those topo lines there. But now we actually need to start inserting some symbols. I'm going to make this font. Actually, let's just leave the font as is. So here's my legend. Maybe what I'll do is I'll go in and make this underlined. So now what we need to do is we need to insert some symbols here that indicate that are representative of the points that we're talking about. So I'm going to type in insert, and we get this little window here that pops up. Close that. And so what we can do is we can use some of the predefined blocks inside AutoCAD in order to define what's going on here. So for example, let's see. We have trees. Let's just put a tree right there. We used, I think it was benchmark. I think it was the benchmark symbol. That's the one that we used for a control point. I think we have a utility pole. You know, I didn't type out utility pole here. But maybe what we'll also do is we'll pick, I don't know, let's just use catch basin, but let's do that. Sorry, which one do I want to use? Here we go. So catch basin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert that at a 45-degree angle. You know, put that right there for quotes, what have you. And now you can see, look, now I've got all of my points here. So it's really not that difficult to create a legend. So maybe what I'll do is I'll move this down. Let's go to the home command, move that down. Then we'll do, come on. And we'll move this over. You know, for the purposes of the demo, I think that's good enough. Let's move that maybe a little bit out of the way. That's good. I think that's fine. Okay, so just sort of summarizing what we've done here, and then the only thing left to do is to actually generate this into a PDF. So actually, let's go ahead and do that first. So let's go to plot. Let's go to File, Print, Plot. Sorry, I tried to do the quick plot. We're just going to plot to a single sheet. So a little bit about this. So what AutoCAD's trying to do is, if, like I said, you know, paper space is great if you've got multiple layouts. This would be if you were trying to plot them all at once. Right now I'm just plotting a single sheet. So I just want to plot this drawing right here. One of the things I might do is I might do my drawing to grayscale. So when I hit preview, So it's actually plotting all of these as grayscale, which is, that's actually very conventional for typical drawings and whatnot. So let's hit OK. Put that on the desktop. Let it do its thing. And by golly gosh gee, we have ourselves a topographic drawing done. And I'm just sort of doing this on the fly, and we did this in about an hour. I would probably spend, if I was in a professional setting, I would spend a lot more time, with getting the title block formatted appropriately and getting all the font sizes and everything right. All of the little fine details necessary in order to make the drawing a lot more professional. But for our purposes, I'm just trying to make sure that you understand the nuts and bolts of how to generate the file. I would like to see you spend a little bit of time ensuring that your CAD drawing looks good, but hopefully this video helped you with the long and short process. I hope I didn't go too fast on some of the specific details, but again, between the handout and what I've gone through here on the video, I think that this will definitely make the Topo Lab a lot easier. And with that, that's all I got. So just to be clear, this drawing is one I want submitted at the very end, your final topographic drawing. With that, of course, if y'all have any questions, we'll be in class. But with that, I will see you all in class and in lab.